Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 38 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be joined by Landon Cassill of the NASCAR Xfinity Series. We will talk to Landon about how his season's going so far and also his path to get to this point, and some iRacing news as well with Landon when he joins us coming up in just a little while from right now. As always, we are presented by Whataburger. Don't forget that every Whataburger is made fresh, served hot, and prepared just like you like it. Want jalapenos and cheese on that? No problem. They've got you covered. Whataburger, proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. David Starr joins us right now. David, how we doing?
Man, we're doing great, man. You guys doing all right?
Hey, we're doing well, David. You had a busy weekend there in Bristol. We saw you get some TV time on the Cup side with the 32nd place finish there. And then on the Xfinity side, David, you ended up finishing 30th. Tell us about your doubleheader weekend there at the last great Coliseum, Bristol Motor Speedway.
Man, always exciting when you race at Bristol. We raced Friday night, and man, my Whataburger Toyota Super was pretty awesome. A little tight in the center. We just had a hard time getting off the corners. It was pretty tight. We kept adjusting on it and was getting it where we needed it. And then I got hit in the left rear by Tommy Joe Martin. It's just one of those racing things. But I believe I held him up the week prior. You know, Tommy Joe's a good guy, great friend of mine, great race car driver, and I didn't realize that he was going to win a stage there at Richmond. And, man, I think I blocked him, and I blocked him on purpose, but I didn't realize it was him. You know, you don't think Tommy Joe Martin's going to be leading the race. And if I'd have known that it was him I was blocking, I probably would have let him gone on by, you know what I mean? Because he's underfunded team. He's like a lot of us, you know, we're just doing the best we can to survive. And, man, it was amazing when I found out it was him. And, you know, I caused him not to win the stage, and I'm sure he was upset about that. And then later on in the race, he got taken out. And so I had seen him, I don't know, I don't do much social media, but his fans were killing me. And I think it was probably a little payback from the Richmond race. And he got into us a little bit, which we were so lucky when you spin or crash coming off turn 4 at Bristol. You usually don't get to finish the race. You know, we just got lucky and didn't hit anything. But you know, knowing race cars, for our fans that are listening, if you know race cars, our tire rod end got caught underneath the front sway bar arm and got jammed up. And it took me about 3 laps to go forward, back up, go forward, and try to get it unstuck. And I was lucky enough that we got it unstuck, was able to finish the race. But man, when you're 3-4 laps down, it's hard to make that up. But man, that was an exciting race. I didn't really get to see what was going on because myself, we were busy racing, but man, what an exciting finish to that Xfinity race Friday night. It was amazing.
Yeah. And Dominic Aragon of the RacingExperts.com joins us as well. Dom, what a weekend at Bristol. They put on quite the show, and we saw Bristol live up to the hype. That was some of the best Bristol racing we've seen in a long time.
Oh, we sure did. I was watching that race, and I felt like a fan on the edge of my seat, right? You're wondering what's going to happen in those last few laps in the Cup race. Cut-off elimination race for the playoff guys, and the Xfinity race the night before. Great racing this weekend. We always know that Bristol, on the quadruple weekend, right, with the Truck Series and the ARCA Series, always produces great racing, and this weekend was no exception to that.
David, I want to get your thoughts on this before we bring in Landon here. Kyle Larson gets the win, continues the dominating season he's had, and now we have our championship 12 that have advanced on. And you had the situation with Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick. I know you've been following up on it as well. What did you make of just everything that occurred on Saturday night, from Kyle Larson winning to the exchange that Elliott and Harvick had to the guys that ended up making the final 12?
Well, I mean, you know, it's Bristol, you know, it's Bristol, and there's usually tempers going to flare, and it was exciting, man. I tell you what, a little drama in our sport doesn't hurt our sport. I mean, there's people that don't even follow NASCAR racing. You throw in a little drama from Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott. And next thing you know, somebody's one of my friends that don't even follow our great sport of NASCAR racing, they're calling me and, they're asking me about it. You know what I mean? So I think Bristol lived up to its hype, and having some drama like it played out is good for our sport. More eyes are watching, but hey, man, it's just racing. You know what I mean? It's just racing, and it happens. It's kind of cool to see Kevin Harvick up there, the old Kevin Harvick and Stuart Hostine, where they're racing for a win. And there's a lot of passion there. You know what I mean? So a lot of passion on everybody's side, and man, it's Bristol lived up to its name.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. Bristol certainly put on a show, to say the least. And Dominic, we're going to bring in Landon Cassill here. I want you to tell us about Landon and his background and such. He's been incredible in iRacing, but Landon's been around the NASCAR scene for a while now.
Absolutely. Racing has been a part of his life, his entire life. He's been racing since the age of 3 years old, hailing from the great state of Iowa, was a junior motorsports development driver, NASCAR Xfinity Series in the late 2000s, and has driven in countless Cup Series and Xfinity races. Currently races full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. We welcome in Landon Cassill on this week's show. Landon, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate it. Tyler, it's good to hear your voice again.
He's got that golden voice, huh, Landon? He's got such an iconic, golden $1 million voice.
That's right.
You guys are too kind. I'm just glad to have a fellow Midwesterner in here in Landon, hailing from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. That's where you're from, and you're still there to this day, right, Landon?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, I'm here in Cedar Rapids, and this Midwestern folks. We're just a little more wholesome, aren't we?
Oh, we are. And that Iowa nice is such a real thing too. You guys are some of the nicest people around. That culture, I love the folks out in Iowa.
That's awesome.
Hey, Landon, man, it's cool having you on our podcast, man. You got a big following, a lot of race fans that follow you and cheer for you week in and week out. And, man, we always it's cool having a race car driver on here of your stature. And you've been racing in NASCAR for a long time. We've seen you for years running in the Cup Series and, now in the Xfinity Series, and you've been a part of this sport for a long time, and you're one hell of a race car driver. But, take us back to the start. Where did Landon Cassill discover stock car racing? How did that happen? Was your dad involved, your mom, uncle? How did all this come to be? When did you know you wanted to be a race car driver and make a living at it?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a race car driver from the time I was a little kid. And I didn't grow up in a racing family necessarily, but I grew up in a car family. My family's in the car business in Cassill Motors in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I grew up going to Hawkeye Downs Speedway every Friday night as a kid, watching race cars. And I knew every driver of every division. I watched every NASCAR race on Sunday. I knew every driver and just always loved it. But what's unique is when you're a kid, you don't really know the path, and it takes parents, it takes family support to even get off the ground. And my dad bought my brother and I go-karts when I was 8 years old. And that was really the start. Before then, we raced four-wheelers and rode them around, and that's sort of how I learned how to drive a vehicle. But go-kart racing is when it got competitive, and from that point forward, it's just it's a drug, man. It's addicting, and you get further and further into it. And we were racing more and more and more through my teenage years. Raced full-size stock cars and super late models all over the country, and that was during the mid 2000s when the teams were in a young driver hiring phase, kind of like they have been in the last couple of years. And so I was on the list with all the other young drivers at the time. And I got hired by Hendrick Motorsports in 2007, and was my first job, my first gig, I guess you could say, on the job for Hendrick Motorsports was to test Jeff Gordon's Daytona 500 car in 2007. So that was a pretty big day for me. I was 17 years old at the time.
17 hopping in Jeff Gordon's car. That had to be surreal. Were you pinching yourself when you got that moment?
Yeah, it was definitely crazy. It was incredible. To go to that organization. I worked for Hendrick for 5 years. Tested majority of the time. I tested for Jimmy Johnson in the 48 team and Chad Knaus, and drove a lot of their cars. I drove Dale Jr.'s cars, Mark Martin's cars, Jeff Gordon's cars, Kyle Busch's cars. And then it was, 2009, 2010, 11, I would say is when I started, transitioning out of test driving and racing. And I guess by racing, I mean start and parking, because my first Cup starts my first 20 Cup starts were all start and parks, driving for small teams. But I wouldn't have gotten those opportunities if I hadn't been test driving at the time, because there weren't a lot of drivers in NASCAR that could drive the COT and get them in the show. There was 50 entries at a lot of those races. David I remember you were driving for Levine at the time. And that was a hard time. And the sport really needed drivers that could qualify those cars into the races. And so my testing experience at Hendrick is really what put me in those rides and got me in the Cup Series.
Man, that's amazing to be able to. Man, I had no idea that you were a test driver for Hendrick Motorsports. Man, that is amazing at such a young age to be able to drive for Jeff Gordon, test for Jeff Gordon, and all the Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson. Unbelievable. And working with their crew chiefs and their engineers, man, that just don't happen to a lot of us drivers out there, man. That's amazing. And you think, Landon, that experience and working with a team like Hendrick Motorsports and working with them for finally jumped over to the Cup side and you had to start qualifying cars, and you didn't have no problem. I remember, man, the fields were tough to qualify for, but you could always tell if Landon Cassill was out there that you were going to be one of the guys that would make it into the race.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was that time, my time at Hendrick at a young age, the testing, it just laid the foundation for me to learn what that caliber of organization looked for in a driver and looked for in feedback. And I do feel like as a result, my career beyond then, I've fit in a lot of different roles at race teams that needed that kind of development, right? They needed to get out of a hole, or they needed to get back to where they knew they could run equipment wise, or even like upstart teams. I mean, I've driven for several upstart teams in my career, like BK Racing and Starcom Racing, Hillman Racing, Circle Sport. Those are all teams that were, trying to build from the ground up. And I felt, and it just seemed like what I learned working for Chad Knaus, which was an intense part of my career, right? When driving for Chad, really helped me give the type of feedback that my crew chiefs and engineers were looking for. And I'm extremely thankful for that, because I didn't have those tools. That's solely things that I learned at Hendrick.
Well, and Landon, the other one I've really been curious about asking you too, like you said, your first 20 starts in the Cup Series were starting park efforts. You look at Phoenix Racing, the Racers Group, Larry Gunzelman, but then 5 races into 2011, you got to run a majority of the schedule there for James Finch in the 51 car. How did that all come together? And like, again, were you pinching yourself? Because here you are running week in and week out in a Cup Series ride. Yeah,
it came together because I drove so many starting parks for James, and I finished third driving for him in the Xfinity race at Daytona in 2011. But I had driven a lot of starting park races for him the year before, and we had some success together, and they had a rough start to their season in 2011. So I was still testing for Hendrick at the time, and they were getting Hendrick engines on that team, and they had plans with Hendrick to get some R&D cars for a few races. So James called me up. It was, driving for James, David, I don't know if you ever drove for James Finch. Just about everybody has at some point, but he was an interesting guy to drive for. I owe a lot of my career to him because he put me in a race car, and I do believe that at one point I think I could boast that I had driven for James Finch for more consecutive races than any other driver has driven without getting fired. So there's a streak there that I've had driving for James. So he's not an easy guy to drive for, but I owe a lot of my career to him. But he called me up on a Tuesday, and it was about a 3-minute conversation. He asked if I wanted to drive his car at Fontana that upcoming weekend. He didn't tell me how much I was getting paid, if I was getting paid. He didn't tell me if it was for 2 races or 1 race or 10 races. He just asked me if I was available, and I just said yes. That was it. So I went to the racetrack and I drove for him, and he just kept me in the car. We never had a contract. We never even talked about salary. I just got a check in the mail. That was it. I got my first check in the mail driving for him after about 3 or 4 weeks. And it was just enough money that I didn't know if it was for 1 race or if it was for all the races that I had driven for him. But it's over the course of that year, I got the same check every month. So there was really no performance incentive or anything like that. He just died, but that was, I didn't get a rookie year because I start and parked. So I lost my rookie eligibility because I made so many starts. So, but that was my rookie year as a driver. So, anybody that's worked with James Finch can probably, understand what I'm saying, when I say that I spent my rookie year driving for James Finch. That was an experience.
So tell me this, Landon, you've raced, under the Hendrick banner, for Dale Jr.'s Junior Motorsports, BK Racing, Front Row. You mentioned James Finch, just to name a few. What's the thing you're most proud of what you've accomplished and who you've raced for? What would that be, Landon?
I mean, I think it was getting Mike Hillman's team off the ground and racing our way into the Daytona 500, which pretty much dictated the ability for that team to stay in business for the year. That was a really hard time for Cup Series teams to make it. They had to race their way in at the start of the season every year. And when you start the season with no sponsorship, I mean, that whether you make Daytona or not can determine if you can go to the next 3 or 4 races. And that's probably, specifically probably one of the things that I'm most proud of is just what those couple of years that I spent at Hillman Racing and the family that came out of that, and my relationship with the Hillmans. Collectively, I think that just a few weeks ago, I made my 500th NASCAR start. Wow. And to me, that was just kind of astounding that I've raced that many times in the sport. It's provided a family for me and a lifestyle and a living and a home. And, that really set me back. That was an emotional race.
Yeah, it's just listening to you talking about James Finch, man. I'll tell you what, I've been doing this 24 years, and I mean, if you were good enough for James Finch to call you on the telephone, you were a damn good race car driver, because when James Finch when he goes to the racetrack, they go to win. Mm-hmm. And man, just not anybody gets a phone call from James Finch. So, Landon, when you got that phone call from him, that meant a lot to him. He had the faith in you, and you had the ability to be able to take his cars to victory lane. So, man, I'm not surprised, but man, kind of interesting. I forget all that now that you're talking about it. I remember it now, but James Finch, man, he only goes one way, and that's first class. I mean, he had Hendrick Motors, and he tried to hire the best people and had the best race cars. And man, what an opportunity that was. And then I remember you, talking about the Hillman family, man, what a great racing family. And man, they were in that Cup Series for a long time. And it's interesting to hear. And I remember now that you're talking about it, people don't realize, I mean, the Cinderella story, when you made Daytona 500 for their first time. And like you said, man, you put them in business, because I don't think if you wouldn't have made the race, I mean, you never know. You never know what the future looks like. But when you don't make the Daytona 500, man, it's easy for a team to go out of business, because you spend so much money preparing to make that race. And if you don't make it, man, you done spent almost your whole budget trying to make it. And for the teams that do make it, man, it's a lifesaver. It's a career saver for the team and the driver. And man, that's amazing. Those are great Cinderella stories right there. Amazing, man. And just man, dude, you've had such a cool career, and it ain't been very long, but man, 500 starts is amazing. And man, I didn't even know about all the Hendrick stuff, dude. That's amazing, man. I mean, you know, I'm just sitting here listening to you talk, man. Would that have been cool to have been if Hendricks would have said, you know, Landon, you're a hell of a test driver. You've done us a great job. We're just going to throw you in there, and you're just going to be a partner to Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon. I mean, the opportunity. It's possible that could have happened, but man, it's cool to hear your story. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. It is cool, and I'm so grateful for it. I think, especially now, I'm so grateful for it. You know, I'm married. I've got kids, and you know, I love racing. Race cars are cool, and I'm so lucky that it's provided for me for this long.
Well, I think the good Lord has blessed you with your ability and your talent as a driver. You're pretty damn good race car driver. I've driven you. I've seen the back of your race car a whole lot, that's for sure, over the years, you know. And but you know what, our fans, and a lot of them understand, a lot of them don't, you know. And even when you have the ability and you're good at your trade and you're a damn good race car driver, you know, it's a shame that our ability doesn't give us that team that we need to drive for to be able to win races. And man, I've always respected what you've done. I mean, you've done so much with not a lot, and that means fundings of the different teams you've driven for. It ain't like you've been driven for Hendricks and you know, Joe Gibbs over the years. I mean, you've had to fight and claw for everything you have. And, you know, in today's world of professional auto racing, you know, if you don't bring millions and millions of dollars with you, you really don't even have a job anymore. So to see what you have done and to sustain like you have in such a great sport at the top level, man, it says a lot about your ability and who you are and your determination and the passion you have for stock car racing. That's for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot, David. It's still this sport though. I mean, and I think any sport is this way, and maybe even any business, especially when you're at the highest performing level. Your talent, your skill, that's just one component. You know, there's so many more components to it. You know, your ability to create a business around it and support yourself and attract sponsors and fund, you know, your way up the ladder. Those are all components. I do think it's easy to be cynical towards, you know, drivers with funding or sponsored drivers, but that's just part of what it takes, right? And you know, we all wish that we had that sponsorship or whatever it is, but you know, you're always trading one set of problems for another, and it's really your ability to you know, to focus on your priorities at hand that can get you through every day.
Landon Cassill joining us this week here on Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Landon, tell us about how your season's going so far. What's the next goals that you're looking to accomplish here?
Yeah, I mean, it's going well. I mean, we've had a rough couple of weeks though. You're trying to really keep the overall health at Johnny Davis Motorsports up. And by that, I mean, you know, the points, like we want to keep the cars in points. It pays these teams a lot of money to be in the top 30 in owners points. So if you're a race fan, that's looking for the race within the race, you know, pay attention to those cars between 20th and 30th. They're trying to get in the top 30 in owners points. There's a lot of money every single week at stake there. And Johnny, we've been flirting with having 2 cars in the top 30. We swapped points with the 4 and the 6 recently. and to try to get the 6 cars points up. And it kind of backfired on us because the last 2 weeks we've had mechanical issues with the same car at Richmond and Bristol. So 2 really good racetracks for me that we hate to give up. Potential top 15 races for us, especially Bristol. But that's racing and it happens. And so now you just look towards the rest of the season. I feel like at Talladega, I love, talk about James Finch for just a second. One of my favorite parts about driving for James Finch was he went to super speedways with one agenda and one agenda only. And that was to lead every lap and win the race. And obviously leading every lap at a super speedway is almost impossible. But I really I appreciated that type of agenda driving for him because it was easy, right? You just drive your guts out the whole time because that's what the boss wanted. So for us at Talladega, it's more of a survival thing. We want to make sure that I always tell the guys, it's like, look, we just got to see the white flag. You guys see the white flag at those super speedways. It's the most important thing. And you have to play this game of, am I aggressive enough that I'm not losing the draft, but not so aggressive that I'm going to be, in striking distance of a wreck. So we'll go to Talladega and be really focused on having a good balance there. I'll be back in a cup car at Talladega driving for Gaunt Brothers Racing. So that'll be a really good opportunity for me and some great equipment to try to win a cup race. And then looking to the end of the season, we just got some really good racetracks. I love Martinsville, I love Phoenix, I love Texas. So hopefully we'll close that thing out. The Roval will be fun. I haven't driven there in a couple of years. But yeah, just try to have a good solid finish to the season and keep Johnny's cars up in points the best I can.
One of the things that Landon has said, guys, and I don't know if y'all caught on to what he was saying. Johnny has 4 race cars. 2 of them are in the points and the bonus money, and that's a big deal for smaller teams that aren't your big multi-million-dollar teams. I mean, when you get that bonus money, that's keeping the lights on, keeping the door, the lights on and the doors open, But hearing Landon talk, his car that he's been driving is in the top 30. Well, they're trying to get their other 2 cars in the top 30, and guess who they put in them? Landon Cassill. You see what I mean? I caught that. I don't know if y'all caught that, and he was just saying for him to capitalize and move those numbers that Johnny has into the top 30. He had some mechanical problems and some stuff, but man, it's very interesting and really for the fans that are listening, that will be listening, to understand, the business side of how we race and why we race, and not every race. It's not all about just the winner that gets the big trophy and goes into victory lane. There's so many other wins within a race that people don't understand, and man, we're just fighting hard to survive and have that bonus money and be in the top 30 is so important to teams like we race for right now.
Absolutely. Well, and Atlanta, even just take us back to like how everything was one calendar year for you, or even 18 months ago, because you were running for Morgan Shepherd in the Ventures Racing Xfinity Series, and the team shut down, or I should say is on hiatus. I mean, 1 year removed, 18 months into the pandemic, right? We know this pandemic has affected everybody, and NASCAR isn't any different from that. But how has that journey been for you through the pandemic these last 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's like for everybody, it was an interesting year. I mean, I was coming off of racing full-time in the Cup Series for Starcom Racing and had plans to drive for Morgan. We were going to go to as many races as we could. We didn't really have any sponsorship. It was going to be a start and park effort a lot of the time, which was fine. Because we had one car, we had a pretty good car. We had some speed with it. We actually qualified 9th at Las Vegas in his car, which was pretty astounding.
That's amazing. Yeah.
We had a lot of solid runs in it qualifying wise. But yeah, we just want an opportunity to race it. We did race it in Homestead and finished 15th, which was really cool. Yeah, the pandemic, I mean, it really kind of shut that down for us. It locked us out of the points, and the way that NASCAR sort of redid the points, we were out of the points to where we weren't even able to come to the races because there was no qualifying. And so it sidelined us. But when everything shut down completely, I mean, I got into iRacing, which I've been in iRacing for a long time, but just felt like, hey, this might be the only race car I drive all year. and so I started streaming and just really got involved there, and it was fun. I mean, my fan base was really supportive of it, and I streamed a bunch, and what really came out of it was my good friend and fellow driver Parker Kligerman and I started an esports promotions company called eRacer. And ultimately what we do with eRacer is promote the biggest and best independent events on iRacing. So we put up the biggest purses, we do all the broadcasts ourselves. We create all the assets for it. We hire the team. We have a team. It takes about 20 people to put on one of our events. And they're pretty big budget. We spend a lot of money. We get sponsorship for it all. And we've given out like $50,000 worth of prize money so far. I think probably more than 60,000, I think, in prize money so far. And our last event, which kind of our flagship event, is the Firecracker 400. We run it in July. It's a remake of the real world Firecracker 400. And it has a $15,000 purse. We had almost 500 competitors sign up for it. So it's a really cool thing. And what we were able to do, though, is just build this community around eNASCAR and esports and iRacing. And we have a Discord server with a couple thousand people, and they're, it's turned into something more than just a couple events.
Man, that's amazing. The business side, the pandemic hit, shut our sport down. And man, it's so cool to hear you explain that. And it's turned into a great business for you, and given a lot of opportunities to a lot of race enthusiasts out there that probably don't get to race in NASCAR with us, or even on a short track, wherever they may live, but man, they're professional iRacers, and to race for the kind of money you're talking about, Landon, man, that is
it's like going to a Saturday night short track, isn't it?
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, hell, these iRacer professionals are making more than the actually people who are out there racing cars, dude. That's amazing. And that's pretty cool what y'all have founded, and the opportunities you're giving racers across the country, man. You should be so proud. I didn't even know y'all were doing that, but I'm not too involved in the iRacing deal. But man, that is really cool. Wow.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed it, and I truly believe that sim racing, in particular iRacing, because it's the best sim racing platform out there. It is another racing discipline. It's not real racing versus not real racing. It is definitely real racing. It's just racing in the virtual world. So it's a different discipline of racing. You have different forces on your body. You're not at a physical risk like you are in a real car. But it happens in a very real way. And you can, I think that an up and coming driver can really learn a lot of fundamentals on that platform, and it can be a great supplement to what they're learning out in the real world.
Landon, listening to you talk, when COVID hit, shut everything down, and NASCAR put iRacing on television, I thought it was the coolest thing. But do you think, I think the iRacing and sim racing has really helped our industry as a whole, because I really believe that people that are kids and, adults and people that are really good at it and who are making a lot of money from, be thankful to people like yourself and Parker Kligerman, do you think that a lot of them will say, man, this is really cool, I'm really good at it, let's go to our local racetrack and let's get in a real race car? I mean, yeah. Is it a tool? Is it something that directs them to their local dirt track or local asphalt track so we can build our future in this sport? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? And man, it's interesting that we're talking about this, because I've had that question on my mind for a long time and nobody to really ask. So what's your thoughts on that, Landon?
Yeah, because I think it's just a very low barrier of entry. And it's an easy way for someone to get to know racing. and to get to know the sport, but in a serious way, it's not a game, you know, you can play racing games, and racing games are also a really fun way to learn the sport, but it's a little bit more serious and more competitive. And I think that it's a great bridge to the real world. So if you're new to racing, you can start out on iRacing at the very lowest level, the same way you would if you were new to racing and you went to your local short track. But it's a low barrier of entry. I mean, it's $10 a month or whatever it costs for a membership. You know, you just need a gaming computer, and you could spend $100 on a steering wheel and have something that works. So it's a really easy way in. And then I think for young drivers, for serious drivers, I think it's a great learning tool. I think you just learn how to go about a race. I mean, my son is 6 years old and has a go-kart, and when I'm telling him, you know, things to do in his go-kart, I reference iRacing. You know, I say, hey, now remember on iRacing, you follow this line around the corner, and you know, iRacing is how he knows what the flags mean. You know, iRacing is how he understands what a pit lane is, you know, and that you enter and exit a racetrack in a certain way, because those are all things that you do in the iRacing sim. So I just think that it's a great bridge for, like you said, new fans, but also a good fundamental learning tool for young drivers.
Well, and Landon, last year you were pretty successful running the Pro Invitational Series during the pandemic and getting the TV time and such. What was it like for you to not only, you know, be on that stage, but to do as well as you did? Did it feel like an opportunity of sorts that you were getting to show kind of an equal footing of sorts, how good you were compared to the rest of them?
Yeah, that was a cool aspect to it. I felt like, you know, I had an opportunity to race against these guys that I have been racing against for the last decade, but on a fair playing field. That was something that I've never had before. You know, and I'm going to say it's fair. Some of those guys might say it's not fair because they might say, well, I'm not very good at iRacing and I've never messed with it. And it was like, well, okay, well, we're all at home for 8 weeks. What else do you have to do? So I'm going to focus on it. And I'm going to be the best darn sim racer that I could be. So it was cool to race against those drivers on an equal playing field, because I don't get to do that very often. And you know, what's funny, I learned, you know, some of those guys that are good in real life, they're good for a reason. I mean, Denny Hamlin was one to me that was just like, good God. I mean, the guy, he's just good. He knows how to win, you know, and that's what separates those guys, from some of the other ones that just can't win, even in good equipment. You know, we all talk about being in better equipment. David, you know, you and I both know how much we would love to be in faster race cars. No offense to any of the teams that we've driven for in our careers, right? We all want to be in faster race cars. But you still have to know how to win when you do get in those cars. And that was one thing that I saw in Denny Hamlin, was just like, man, this guy isn't just good, he knows how to win.
Absolutely. That's man, I love hearing you explain that, because people don't understand, just because you get that opportunity that we're all working and we're all just working our tails off to have. And when you get them, you know, and it's interesting because, I mean, one of my great friends, and I hate to even say his name, but he's a great friend of mine, Brendan Gaughan, you know, he's like, man, once he got an opportunity with RCR, he said, dude, I had to learn how to win all over again, you know, and
yeah.
When you got the team behind you and the resources, the engineering and the technology and everything that you could ever want, you know, it's all on you and the team, you know, and you know, one of the things that he said, I had to learn how to win, you know, and just because you have that doesn't guarantee you a win. We all work our tails off and strive to have that. And once you get it, you got to do what Landon's talking about. You got to learn how to win with it, you know, because we see it. We even see it. I mean, it happens week in and week out. People have those opportunities, and you know, and I think over time they figure out, hey, I'm you know, I'm getting the experience, and I'm trying to figure out how to win with it, you know, and absolutely, man, it's a great way to explain it, Landon.
For sure.
Well, what's funny too about this, what you guys are talking about, Dominic and I were literally just having this conversation today about the transition of when drivers go from, average to below average equipment to elite equipment, how that process is of that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're just going to win races because you're running in top stuff, that you have to learn how to drive it. That, trying to learn to win of sorts. I mean, David, if you hopped in Kyle Larson's car right now, I mean, it would take time before you would be running at that Hendrick level, right?
Absolutely. But I love to have the opportunity, you know what I mean? Because I think over the years, having to, it's interesting, and I'm not going to name the driver, but, at times, man, you're in practice over the years and you're over driving the corner. You're trying to get back to the gas early, and you're telling your crew chief, hey, the thing won't turn in the center, but you're over driving the corner, and man, you're just driving the wheels off the car, and you're 20th, And then when practice is over with, man, one of your buddies comes up to you and they say, how's your car? It's like, man, it's a little tight in the center, but I'm over driving the corner. I'm 21st, 20th, or 22nd in practice. And how's yours? Well, man, I stayed up too late last night. I got a little bit of a hangover, but it's good. I'm fourth. I'm like, you're fourth and you feel like crap. And he's nowhere driving it as hard as we are, you know what I mean? And, but man, there's no substitute for, the best equipment with the best people and all the money in the world. I mean, there's no substitute for that. But I just think over the years, doing the best we can and with the teams that we've been given the opportunity to race for, that if Landon or myself had the opportunity to jump in Kyle Larson's car, I think we would figure out how to win real quick. Mm-hmm. I don't think it would take us that long. I always wanted, and Landon will agree with me. A couple of years ago, I was fighting to stay on the lead lap, and I got in the leader's way. And, hey, man, we're racing just as hard as they are. And I figured, hey, if you're lapping me, man, you can get around me, but I'm trying to pass the guy in front of me because I'm trying to stay on the lead lap. And, man, he came over and he just said, hey, man, he told me what he thought about me. And I told him what I thought about him. And I said, hey, anytime he wanted to switch cars, I would be happy to do that with him. You know what I mean? Just to see, understand that, hey, man, we're racing just as hard as you are. You're just very fortunate that you have the car you have, and we're doing everything. And we're happy to have the opportunities and be racing in NASCAR at our level. But I'll be glad to change teams with you for one race just to see how you would do in the equipment we have to drive week in and week out. And not that we're complaining, just want to see what you could do with it, because we know what we can do with it. We want to see if you could do just as well.
It's a competitive business, man, and nobody has it easy. And it's just, it doesn't matter who you are. Nobody has it easy. And you're just, it's just a matter of how you deal with your challenges. But you couldn't have said it better, David.
Here, that we're talking about it, I want to say, I tell people sometimes they probably think I'm weird, but, just to be racing at the level we're racing at and how challenging it is and how tough it is, man, I tell everybody just to be in the race, you're a winner. You're a winner. And sometimes they look at me, what are you talking about? You're a winner because it's a challenge, man. It's hard, it's not an easy process these days. If it only went off what Landon was talking about earlier, your ability and the talent you have, man, it's so much more to that today in professional auto racing. So anyway, absolutely. But it's still awesome. I still love it. I mean, me and Landon race our tails off sometimes for 23rd, 21st, 22nd. I mean, it's just hard racing, but it's still awesome, And
it can be rewarding too.
Absolutely.
Well,
when you guys said it best too. I mean, it's rewarding.
Oh yeah. Well, and you guys said it best too. The sport requires a lot of money, a lot of people, and Landon, certainly you have one of the more interesting sponsorship deals this year with Voyager, the cryptocurrency brokerage firm. The Athletic had reported back in June that you were the first driver in NASCAR history to be paid in cryptocurrency. So tell us a little bit about that and your fascination with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I mean, crypto is not just an investment for me at this point. It's a lifestyle for me. I got into crypto several years ago, and I've done a little bit of everything in the space. I've bought it, I've traded it. I've actually had a Bitcoin mining farm at one point for about 2 years and mined Bitcoin. So I'm very familiar with it, but I started networking in the space a couple of years ago and really wanted it to be part of my professional career. And that's where I met Steve Ehrlich, the CEO of Voyager. And they were an upstart company, a new brokerage platform, and serving people via mobile app in the United States. And it just has blown up for them in the last year. And Steve and I have always kept in touch, and we get together when I'm in New York. And so this summer was perfect timing for us to get together. And he said, let's do it. Let's get on a race car. Let's go. And so we took him racing this year. And it's been a blast, and they've gotten a lot out of it. And for me, I love the partnership because it's a sponsor that I identify with, and it's a space that I identify with. So Steve and I, we speak a lot. We've spoken to athletes, and we love talking about crypto. We love spending time together, and it's something that, I'm happy to bring to my fan base, and I'm really happy that it's keeping me in a race car.
So I think it's safe to say you're trying to take a Voyager to the moon.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And David, you're kind of a crypto guy yourself a little bit.
Man, it's interesting hearing Landon talk, man. I love crypto. That's a space I like to play in, and man, I have traded it for a couple of years now, and it's been good to me. I had my brother did really, really well with it, and I remember when he introduced me to it, where Ethereum was at, where we were playing, and man, it changed his life, and I was blown away by all of it, and I did my research and started understanding it, and man, you read about it, you see it everywhere, and man, I like I said, I started dabbling in it a couple of years ago, and it's been really good to me, and it's very interesting, and that's pretty cool, Landon. I didn't really know that you were that in depth with it. You know what I mean? That's pretty neat. But I don't share that with a lot of people. But it just I found out about it through my brother, and man, I've been trading it, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. I love it. I think it's a great currency, and it's funny when people say, man, I hear people talking about it all the time, and I talk with them a little bit, but there's nothing tangible, you know what I mean? So, well, hey, sure there is,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's interesting, and man, I'd love to meet the Steve guys sometime. I think that'd be pretty cool to hear y'all's talk and to learn more about it through you guys, Landon. It's pretty awesome.
Well, he'll be in Las Vegas, so come find me.
Oh, dude, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'll introduce you to him.
Oh yeah. Tyler, are you a crypto guy?
Come again?
Oh yeah, Tyler, are you a crypto guy yourself?
I have been fascinated by it, but I have not gotten into it myself. So you guys just might have to draw me in here. I don't know where to start. Where does a guy like me that's not into it start?
Download Voyager and open an account and fund it. I'll give you my promo code, and if you trade $100, then we both get $25.
Okay, so it sounds like free money.
I'm going to have to jump over to Voyager. I'm in Coinbase. You know what I mean? Wow.
Yeah. I'll get you guys my promo code.
Plug that promo code for our listeners or something, maybe.
Well, it's let me see. You can use code Landon, but let me use let me get you my personal promo code.
Okay.
Here.
Oh, so the three of us, we're in the inner circle. We're not.
That's right. Well, anybody that's listening can use my promo code if they want. Get out your pen. It's 8 F as in Frank 107B.
So
one more time, Landon.
8 F 107B Bravo.
There you go. 8F 107B as in Bravo. Awesome.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah. So if you download Voyager, open an account, and fund that account, and trade $100. Or more than $100, trade $101, and then both of us, you and myself will get $25 in free Bitcoin.
Perfect.
And I'll actually this is getting one step farther with Voyager. I will get an additional bonus beyond that because I hold Voyager token. They have a loyalty program with their native token. So if you're a Voyager token holder too, you get a boost on that, depending on what level you're a Voyager token holder.
Dude,
Okay.
if I get off this podcast, man, y'all know what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah. There you go. Download Voyager.
I love it. I love it, guys.
We'll introduce you to Steve in Vegas. Yeah, tell him I'll introduce you to Steve in Vegas, David, and we'll tell him that we got you on the app and that you
Absolutely,
funded it.
man. That's
He'll
cool.
love that.
I love it. I love it. Before we get to our news.
Hey, Tyler, I think every NASCAR driver should have their account with Voyager. What do you think, Landon?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now we need to get Voyager
Steve keeps telling me that he wants me to get Dale Jr. on the app. I'm like, I don't know how to get Dale Jr. on there, but I can try.
Yeah.
Now we just need to get them to sponsor the podcast. We'll get
there you go. There you go. We'll get them on the pod.
I'm sure we got hey, Tyler. I'm sure we got enough people to get to download Voyager and and invest a couple $100 to start trading it. They probably would, we got our work cut out for us. But I think there's a small sponsorship there for us if we can do that.
Right.
I could probably talk him into
right? Well, we just made Landon some free money tonight, so I'll consider that a success. Before we get to our news and notes segment, just a reminder that the folks at Whataburger cook up 100% pure beef burgers 24 hours a day. You can get your burger fix anytime, day or night at Whataburger. Proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. What a burger. Dominic, news and notes time. There's some busy stuff happening in the sport. Let's start out first by looking at the 12 that have advanced to the next round of the playoff. Kyle Larson, he's in good shape. Everyone else, pretty wide open.
Very wide open, right? It's anybody's game at this point. We know at Bristol Motor Speedway, Kyle Larson picked up his 6th win of the NASCAR Cup Series season and his 12th of his career, placing him in sole possession of 60th on the NASCAR all-time wins list. I mean, he's starting to get in some pretty big territory, right? Approaching guys like Jeff Bodine, Davey Allison, Tim Richmond on this wins list. So you look, though, at the overall thing with the NASCAR Cup Series and the playoffs. I mean, we had some really good talent not advance to the next round, right? I look at Kurt Busch in that one car, a lot of speed that is not advancing to the next round, where I think he could have made a lot of noise. But, yeah, Tyler, I don't want to call you a prophet, but I do want to say I think your prophecy is coming true with Denny Hamlin turning up into another gear here as the playoffs have started.
Yeah, you look at the playoffs, and you have all 4 Hendrick, all 4 Gibbs, all 3 Penske, and then Stuart Haas with Kevin Harvick. David, the cream has risen to the top. The elite teams are all over this remaining 12 teams in the playoff here.
Yeah, that's not surprising. I really thought Kurt Busch would have been part of that top 12. I mean, they've shown so much speed and what Ganassi has done the second half of the season. I was really surprised to see Kurt Busch fall out of the top 12 and not continue on. But, man, it's, we're not surprised by the dominance of Hendricks and Gibbs and then looking at, I just watching Kevin Harvick this week just seemed like they're kind of coming on at the right time, and it was kind of cool to see Kevin finally battling for a win, and I think, that they'll take that momentum and keep running with it, but not surprised by, the Hendricks and the Gibbs. And, you look at, no surprise. You look at the Penske cars, they're going to be contenders every year. So it's going to be interesting, from this point forward to see who makes it into the top 8 and on and on and on. And, I love the playoffs, the playoffs. I mean, we talked about it earlier. There's people that don't even really watch our sport, but the excitement and the drama is drawing more fans into what this playoff system is doing for our sport. And man, it's again, it's going to be tough to I think it's Kyle Larson's to lose the championship, but man, he's got some strong guys right behind him fighting for it. Denny Hamlin being the guy that I think could knock him off the throne for the championship this year.
Landon, what do you make of the top 12 that advanced? Who do you like out of that to potentially win that championship?
Man, I mean, it's hard to bet against Kyle Larson right now. And I'm a Denny Hamlin fan right now too. So kind of anxious to see, those two battle it out. And Kyle is just, he's driven right now, and I think you don't want to get in the way of someone that's as focused and motivated as he is.
Yeah, he's on quite the tear. Dominic, if you had to pick a name besides Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson, who could sneak up there and compete with those guys, potentially take that title away?
Well, you really can't root against any of the Joe Gibbs Racing guys, right? Seems like Joe Gibbs Racing camp as a whole has come on fire during this NASCAR postseason, especially. Somebody like a Kyle Busch or Martin Truex, a multi-winner this year in 2021. You really can't look past those two guys and even the Penske guys. I mean, Blaney kind of had a lot of momentum there with the wins there through the summer stretch before the playoffs started. Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, we know they're always going to be consistent throughout the playoffs and have made it to the championship time and time again. It's really hard to say, man, but if you had to give you one name, I would have to say Kyle Busch.
Okay, so there you have it. Some thoughts there on the playoff. And what else we got going on, Dominic?
Other headline we looked at this week on Sunday, September 19th, Rodney Childers, crew chief for Kevin Harvick at Stewart-Haas Racing, tweeted out that he had signed a contract extension with the Cup Series team for, quote, years to come. No details on how long the extension is, but that tandem has been paired up since 2014. And in that first year, they won the NASCAR Cup Series title. So, guys, Kevin Harvick, Rodney Childers, here to stay as a staple in the Cup Series.
David, we'll start with you here. Rodney Childers, he was really good there with Michael Waltrip, getting Brian Vickers to victory lane. Now the success he's had with Kevin Harvick. Rodney Childers, ever since Chad Knaus retired, you could argue is as good as any crew chief in the sport right now.
Yeah, that's just, I'm not surprised by that news. Why would you break up a crew chief pairing of Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick? It's proven champions there. And, I think that was smart on Stewart-Haas's part to give him an extension on his contract because, man, you don't want to mess up that pairing. That's championship caliber right there, no doubt.
Yeah. Landon, Rodney and Kevin, what a duo that has been over the last few years.
Yeah. And Rodney is, he's cool because there's only a few of those old school cool crew chiefs in the sport right now. Those guys, it takes people don't realize how forward thinking someone like him has to be to make it this long at that level. With his background, he's not an engineer by trade. He's a racer. In fact, he's a former driver. He's raced in the Busch Series. But if there's one thing about Rodney Childers, I mean, the guy he makes cars go fast. Like he just makes them go fast. Every car that he works on has gone fast. So it's pretty impressive. He's a guy that a lot of drivers would love to work with, but I would imagine that Kevin's got him tied up until Kevin's retired.
Yeah, absolutely. And this weekend, heading out to Vegas. Dominic, you've been out to Vegas several times. What can you tell us about this race that we have coming up this weekend here?
Sure. Las Vegas will be under the lights Sunday night. It'll be the opening race for the round of 12 in the NASCAR Cup Series. It will be an awesome race. We know Vegas has been on the schedule since 1998, and they acquired their second Cup date in 2018, and they've had a second date as a playoff race over the last 4 years, this year being no exception on that. And I mean, Dave, Landon, you guys can kind of speak to this too. I mean, it's in a really cool area, North Las Vegas, right next to the Air Force Base and about 5 miles north of the Las Vegas Strip. It's a really cool area and a really cool experience if you've never been as a fan.
Landon, what do you make of Las Vegas? I know you've been out there. You like that track? What do you expect to see from the race this weekend?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The track's getting more and more character every time we go. It seems like every time we go back, it's rougher than the last time. It's slicker than the time before. The tires are seeing a lot of fall off. I feel like drivers like David and myself, usually enjoy that, appreciate it. It gives us a chance to maybe make up for anything that our cars might be lacking. So the last couple of times we've gone there, the high line has really come in. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. And maybe if I, later in the third stage, maybe not in stage 1 and 2, but later in this third stage, I'll just kind of pay attention and see if I need to be running up against the wall or not. But just hoping for a good solid run.
David, one thing I'll mention too about Vegas that I don't think gets enough credit when you look at the sports scene that's there now between, the Raiders who are in their second season there, the hockey team, the Golden Knights have been there several years. NASCAR for the longest time was the only annual event that was in Las Vegas, and the fans showed up and showed out. They earned a second date and such. I mean, you could credit NASCAR and Las Vegas Motor Speedway for helping Las Vegas become the sports city it is today.
Man, I got to totally agree with you. You would think Las Vegas, Nevada, with all the excitement and the energy in the air, with the Raiders, the new Raider Stadium is unbelievable. But, man, I've always thought, man, what a cool city to have a major NFL football team. Landon knows and I know, but, man, when the races are in town, man, it's there's a lot of fans there that love our sport, and the racetrack's awesome. I think over the years it's weathered and it's rougher, it's bumpy. It's got 2 or 3 different grooves on it, and just makes for great racing, and I think as it sits out there and bakes in the sun, it makes the racing better and better, because the tracks gets rougher, the bumpier, when you go into turn 1 and through the center of the corner, it's really bumpy. And sometimes if you can get your car to drive through that, it's pretty good. And you can run on the bottom, you can run up against the wall. I think the tire fall off is really good. It makes the racing great when the tire falls off like it does. And but man, what a great city, man. I know the fans of Las Vegas, the people of Las Vegas, Nevada, the hockey team. I know there's been a lot of enthusiasm through some of my former sponsors out there. They're big NASCAR fans, but they love their hockey team out there. And then now having the Raiders out there, man, there's a lot of excitement going on out in Las Vegas these days.
Yeah, there certainly is. We'll get to our Ask David segment in just a moment. But before we do, stop by Whataburger for a hot, hearty breakfast. Any morning or late at night, they're serving a breakfast from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. Whataburger, proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. All right, let's go to the inbox. You can send us your questions on Twitter at Star Podcast, Facebook, David Starr Podcast, and by email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. We'll start out with a Twitter question. This one comes from Judson at Judson Racing. Question for both of you guys. If you were in charge of NASCAR, what is the first thing you would change? Landon, let's start with you.
Man, I would implement a very specific performance-based approval system to get to make your way through the ARCA, Truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series.
Okay, so something like regulation system like we see in soccer or golf, where guys get demoted.
I would tie it to your on-track performance. I think, and I would make it very statistic based. I would make it very black and white, and then tie it to your on-track performance, your finishing positions, and your crash rate. I would think that all those things should play a role. The number of starts that you have, create a very performance based structure to get a license to the point that having the ability to earn a cup license is elite, and you have to accomplish a lot. You have to have a minimum of 50 Xfinity Series starts or 40 Xfinity Series starts. You have to have at least one top 10 finish. You have to have less than certain amount of crashes per race for all those starts, whatever it may be.
David, what do you think of that idea?
Man, I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant, man. I totally agree with Landon, because sometimes it's kind of interesting. And hey, everybody has their own story on how they get to NASCAR and to the elite level of our sport, but sometimes I think maybe people get there too quick. There's a lot of great racers across the country from all parts of the United States. And, some are more fortunate than others. And sometimes, you have some of these kids around the country that their parents can afford to write a check and put them put them at where me and Landon are, and I think at times, that there should be a more detailed and in-depth process to be able to race at the level that we race at, and so listen to Landon speak about that. I think that's a brilliant idea, but man, all it takes is a check these days, and it's kind of amazing that you talk to some people and
Hi, Kim.
Howdy, Kim.
Just got home from a meeting that started about 6 hours ago. But I definitely support what Landon was talking about, because sometimes, things happen, and I don't think people that are racing at the level that we're at sometimes have the experience to be racing at that level, and sometimes it's a challenge, and sometimes it affects other teams, and so I definitely agree with Landon 110%. And one of the things that I think, that looking at how many cars we have on the racetrack today, I think there's, during this COVID stuff, we run 40 cars, and when we have to practice and qualify, there's only 36. But I like for NASCAR to make it where there's 40 cars to start each and every race in all three national series. When I say national series, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series and the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series, it'd be kind of cool if all across the board, all three national NASCAR racing series had 40 cars in each series. I think it would be great. And I say that just because I think it's great to have as many race cars as you can have on the racetrack competing. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that I would hope that NASCAR would do in the future.
Okay, so that's fascinating. Some good answers from both of you there. Got another question. This one's from the email inbox. This is from Rob. This is for Landon. Landon, is it true that you have a castle tattooed on your foot?
Wow.
Yes, Rob, I do. You
want
to see it?
Yes.
Let's see.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
Oh man, that's awesome.
How painful was that, Landon?
That one hurt pretty bad, but fortunately I was like 18 when I got it done, so I was
That's
dumb.
pretty cool, Landon.
Yeah.
I don't have the star tattooed on me anywhere, buddy.
Yeah, you should get one.
David needs to get the Whataburger logo tattooed on him while he's at it too.
Absolutely. How about you, Tyler, Dominic? We got any tattoos on y'all's bodies anywhere?
No tattoos.
I don't have any tattoos. I'm not opposed to tattoos. I just haven't found one thing I want on my body my entire life.
Yeah, and kind of
my last name's not Castle. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, or Starr. Yeah, I can't work with that. But no, I could appreciate the artwork. I can sit there and admire. You can always admire things, right, that you can't do. Like I can't drive for crap. I've gotten behind the wheel of go-karts and race cars. No, not really that well. I'm not a good artist, but I can sit there and admire artwork all day. And I think there are some amazing tattoos out there. But like you, Tyler, I just haven't found anything that I want to put on my body.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's funny. That's really good. Guys, before we go, let's go around the room real quick. Landon, tell us about the next few days ahead for you, man. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm heading to Vegas tomorrow, so I'm flying out in the afternoon. My wife's joining me, so that'll be her first race of the season. So pretty happy to have her out in Vegas with me. So Thursdays, hopefully, just lay by the pool and enjoy the hot sun, kind of relax. And then Friday, probably a little bit more of the same, actually, just kind of hang out in Vegas for a couple of days. So yeah, kind of taking a couple of days off, but with the Voyager folks are coming out. So I've got a lot of people from the Voyager community are going to be there. The VGX Heroes community, which is kind of the Voyager token community on social media that follows me and supports the Voyager token. So they'll be at the race, and then Saturday it's called into work.
Awesome. Where can people follow and connect with you, Landon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm easiest to reach on Twitter. at Landon Cassill on Instagram as well.
That's great. Dominic, what's going on this week with the Racing Experts?
Well, we're going to have our great Frank Romero, photographer who's been with us over the years. He will be covering the NASCAR Las Vegas race for us this weekend through his photo lens. We'll be covering remotely, Jonathan Feld and myself. And yeah, it'll be a great race weekend. How about you, David?
Man, tomorrow I got a busy day. I got a meeting at the Texas Motor Speedway tomorrow morning, and then I'm gonna go get a haircut and then get back to my house, mow my grass, and I think we got some soccer practice tomorrow evening, and then Thursday I'm off to Las Vegas to go join Landon with the little R&R. You know what I mean? I invited my wife, but I don't think she'll be joining me this trip. Even though she'd like to, but just looking forward to always a fun time in Las Vegas, not only to enjoy the casinos and the nightlife and just everything going on around there, but man, love racing there at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And I just, I hope myself and Landon, we have a great race for our teams, and we get out of there and we're happy.
And real quick, Landon, actually, we got one more question that came in through Snapchat. This question comes from Leighton. He wanted to ask, what was it like working with me as your PR guy?
Well, I mean, it was a grind, and it was, you know, a learning experience for both of us, I'm sure. And we both have come out the other end, but really Leighton, was my PR guy at JD Motorsports until he, left and moved on to bigger and better things at GMS. He pretty much shoves it in our face that he's in victory lane every other week. Already, I think it's one of his first weeks at the track. He was in victory lane, sending pictures to our JD Motorsports driver group thread. So we'll have to kick him out of that group thread eventually. But love Leighton, and thanks for watching the show, bud.
But Landon, you know what? I don't think he's having fun you guys are having. So he can act like send all the pictures from victory lane, but he still ain't having the fun y'all are having over there at JD. So
yeah. Landon, I got to know, while you're in Vegas, are you going to go to the roulette wheel and put your chips on black number 4?
Oh, man. I guess I ought to now that you said I should. So I'll do it. I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay. I expect a full report, just like Peyton Manning said the other night when his guys hit on red 18, you know, that Peyton Manning luck to go to your way.
There you go.
That about does it for this edition of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. You can follow us on Twitter at Star Podcast, Facebook.com/David Starr Podcast, and send us an email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. We'll put the checkered flag out on this episode. Subscribe to Let's Go Racing. New episodes out each and every Wednesday on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, on YouTube as well. Leave us a like and a 5-star review. We certainly would appreciate it. For David Starr, Dominic Aragon, and Landon Cassill, I'm Tyler Jones saying so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.